G'day guys, welcome back to Life on the Hulls. I'm Ross. I'm building a 40-foot composite catamaran out of foam core materials, and a couple of weeks ago in my video series I was laminating flat sheet in a batch so as to be able to form bulkheads, road partitions, some internal furniture inside the catamaran, and you'll see what an incredibly versatile material this can be, and it provides an unbelievably rigid structure when it's laminated to a specified laminate schedule. This week I'll be concentrating on the rear bed bases and getting them laminated up, and I'll also deal with some underfloor routing. So let's get into it, eh? Okay, while I've got my gun out prepped and primed, I'm going to laminate my bed frame. So I've got the port side rear queen bed frame there, and our bed floor, and the base for the starboard side as well. So I'm going to take that up into the factory now. Listen, there's storm rolling through, man. We've got lightning. I'm in a big steel dome, so I'm a bit worried. I'm getting to the point where I'm now able to make all of these cabinets, these frames, everything I need to basically just career ahead once I start laminating my bulkheads in. So pretty exciting stuff. But for now, I'm going to take both of these frames, or both of these bases, up into the workshop up there, up into the composite shop, and basically get them laminated over today and tomorrow, and then they're ready just to sit in here, and then I can start working on the access to the engine hatch, the struts, all the supports underneath. So there are lots going on. Loving the whole build process at the moment. I'm really into it, and it's hot. It's about 35 degrees, massive storm rolling through. We're about to get a massive dump, and yeah, wild times. We've been through the fires, we've been through downpours and floods, now we've got storms. All right, so I've got my bed base in here. This is the starboard one. Listen to the rain, it's absolutely slashing down today. Look, pretty happy to hear it, to be honest, but it's not going to be any laminating done here today. The humidity's just gone way through the roof. So time to cut cloth. Looks like a bit of hail coming. Just got to get on with it. The majority of my time when I'm laying up flat sheet is not so much the actual laminating, it's cutting the cloth and making sure that I get the best economical use of my cloth. Often I'll be cutting cloth in half or into sections to make sure that I'm going to get the most economy out of each roll. There's nothing worse than throwing away $5 or $6 worth just because you can't be bothered thinking it out. So pattern making and certainly getting that layup correct. You've also got to consider the axis of the weave as well. You get like a 45-45, you don't actually cross that and end up with a 90 and a 0. You may as well put a quad down. So there's all those things to think about when you're laminating cloth. So pretty much I'm already here. I've got a 300 CSM, which is essentially always the tie layer to the substrate or to the foam, and then I have my 600 double bias. That's layer 1, and then another layer of 600 double bias, and they go crossways across. So the CSM can just roll out anyway, but I've cut it so that I can do it lengthways, and then these guys will go transversely across the bed base. Essentially it's a fair layup, and then I've got peel ply on top of that. All geared up, got the suit on, got my powered respirator on today because it's pretty humid. I just want a bit of a cooler flow of my face. I'm going to lay up this bed base. This is the starboard hull to make sure that I'm getting an incredibly rigid structure, and I want some thickness as well, because this is going to be a bed that is going to have obviously 200 kilos of people sleeping on it. It's also going to have a frame in it to allow for access in and out of the engine. Now I've made it out of 30mm. I could have used a 20mm sheet. The reason why I've gone for 30mm is because it's an engine underneath, and I want to basically make sure that I've got plenty of insulation under there, as well as the fireproofing and insulation for the engine. So just doubling up on the thickness isn't adding any weight or marginal weight, but really adding a lot of heat, insulation, and also from a point of view of noise insulation from having those motors running underneath. So let's get into it, eh? So I laminated the port bed frame yesterday and finished up at about 7 o'clock, and honestly it was so hot here. I went home, I was totally shattered. Went for a walk with the dog, with Janet. Got a phone call from Jason, who lives directly opposite me. He's got a 44-foot lagoon moored about probably 150 metres from where I moor interim, and said, how about you chuck a sickie tomorrow and go for a sail? And I thought, oh, I really need to get this done, keep the chemistry alive, etc. So I went out for the day. It's now 9 o'clock at night, or it's about 8:30 at night, and I'm not really up to laminating it, but I made a commitment to myself and Janet that if I took the day sailing, I'd come in and get this other side done. Sort of under the pump to get as much done as I can, particularly while I've got the gun running. I like to keep it running and running and running. So I've just come in, that was laminated 24 hours ago. It's pretty much rock solid. I'm now going to turn that over. It's still pretty light, and that was plywood, you'd never be able to lift it. So my commitment to both Janet and myself. I tend to be a bit driven, so I've got a lot of spare time through the week at night, and that's how I juggle the editing and the extra laminating. And to be honest now, it's only about 20 degrees outside. Tomorrow is going to be 39 to 42 degrees, so now's the time to do it. I'll do a little bit of rough trim and get it laminated down. By the time I come in the morning, I'm going to be able to do the other side. All day tomorrow I'll basically laminate it. I might even get the aircon in here just to keep the temperature down, because it's getting a little bit, it's even pretty hot and stuff in here because it's been in here all day in the sun beating on the factory. So let's get this one done, and then we can move on to the next one. And just like that, it's done. There's a bit of a story to that. I got up here last night, took me until about 11 o'clock, and then I got a call from Richard, our courier, who delivers my kayaks all over the country for me. He rang and said, get those boats down to the driveway. So I had to handle 15 of my Delta kayaks all the way down to the front of the gate, and at midnight we're loading up. So big day. Got up at 5 a.m, went sailing all day. It was absolutely trashed. Went home feeling guilty. Had to come up, laid this up. Then just as I was about to collapse from exhaustion from a massive day, I get the call from Richard. 15 kayaks, 50-metre walk with each kayak down to the front. Had to repack his truck to get them all to Perth to supply my customer over in Perth. And the reason why I have to walk them 50 metres is because his truck can't get up our driveway. It's so steep that he bottoms out as he comes up. So not a good scene, not a good day. It's the next morning, it's about 10 a.m. I just couldn't drag myself out of bed this morning. But anyway, this is done. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I'm not much of a procrastinator, but when your neighbour across the road, Jason and Mel, ask you to take a sickie so you can go out sailing with them, well, you just got to jump on it, don't you? They own a Lagoon 44. It's about 20 years old, and they've been slowly getting this thing ready over the last couple of years to head off cruising. What an incredible day we had on Jervis Bay. HMAS Adelaide was in the bay as well, as on its way back from the recovery from the fires, and we just had a top day. Learned a lot about different setups on a few different boats, and here's a couple of snippets of the day. What a beast. I think that chopper's about to take off, actually. Definitely different wind now behind this beast. Look at the size of the Zodiac in here, and there's a Seahawk helicopter up on there. What do you reckon, Jace? Pretty good, eh? What a scene, mate. They're doing this just for us. Oh, I've lost my wind too.
You're moving forward, so we'll be behind.
Yeah, he's getting a bit of air assist. So they're driving forward. Look at the bulb on the thing. It's like 20 foot long. Oh, there's never a dull moment on Jervis Bay, mate, is there? Yeah. Class, I love the headsets, mate. They're fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know whether Janet could handle that. Having me in her ear all day long.
I only ever use them for that.
Yeah, anchoring and mooring, but they are wonderful, aren't they?
They are good, mate.
Yeah, what a great idea. I'm on for that.
Yeah, I've tried to.
If we can keep our voices down, we'll be in control. So I've just had an absolutely brilliant day out sailing with Jace since about 9 o'clock this morning. It's nearly 4 at the Savo. We've got Teddy running around the deck. Lagoon 44 is a beautiful old boat. He's had this for a couple of years now and really sorted this boat out. So all the systems are well fine-tuned. I really love the fact that a lot of the winches are at a good ergonomic level for me. I struggle on some boats because some of them I've got to be on my knees to operate the winches. I really love the fact that everything's at knee or around about sort of waist height for me. Very, very important for a guy my size. Nothing worse than being down on your knees, guys. So there it is after about 5 days of solid flat sheet laminating, like doing both sides. Every day I do one sheet. I've now got a stockpile of parts up there that I can now get in and do all of my road petitions and some cabinetry as well. This here is the starboard bed base, so I've now got to trim it. I've actually trimmed the peel ply back all the way around. I now have to use my multi-tool and trim it to the right size, and the foam actually was the size of the bed base that I needed, so I'm going to trim that back with this particular tool here. I find that they're really good, they're very accurate. You do need to drag it rather than push, because when you push you tend to put a lot of vibration into the laminate, and you can delaminate the edges. It's not going to be that critical here, but certainly on other components, definitely I don't want any delamination. But that tool is the best. It creates minimal dust. I can contain the dust in here in the factory here with my extraction system, and ultimately it's all about trying to contain the amount of mesh you've got so you haven't got too much cleanup later on, and obviously what you're breathing in. So I want to basically wear a mask. It's an earmuffs job in here because it gets pretty loud, but it is around 35 degrees out here today, so I'm trying to keep inside and reasonably cool while I work through the day. So yet another piece of the puzzle, that's going to be permanent. That will be glassed in within the next couple of months once I get the floor down, which shouldn't be too long, to be honest. And yep, it's starting to really come together. Pretty bloody happy. I can actually lay on this, believe it or not. I'll tell you how much faith I've got in my own work. Test it. It's only sitting on a couple of plates at the moment, but in an effort to try to improve things here on Life on the Hull, so I've spent out a little bit of money that I've luckily got from a bit of patronage and YouTube revenue, and got myself a new Rode mic. This thing's absolutely fantastic. I've been dealing with shitty little lavalier mics and boom mics that have just been absolute rubbish, so it's about time to buy a decent brand. I've bought that. I bought a little camera rig. Obviously most of my filming is done on a phone because I'm in some pretty tight locations. A big SLR is just not going to cut it for this type of production unless I had someone physically filming. And I've got a couple of these little lights. I mean, it's not a big expense, but the advantage is I can actually move this thing around and use it like I use a camera, and hopefully my sound quality will improve out of sight. Now, a lot of the time here I'm working in an environment such as I'm in here is actually an industrial area, so there's always noise going to be on. There's air guns, there's rattle guns, there's trucks, there's whippersnippers and weed whackers and people mowing lawns and bulldozers and the work. So some things I can't control, but when I do motorbikes screaming past, some things I try to do is try to dull it out and then talk over if the loud noise is too much. And also in this tent here, the wind noise can be pretty intimidating and pretty bad for you guys out there. So I am trying, guys. Give me a bit of credit. Give me a little bit of credit. So sometimes to get the shots that you all know and love about me, those overhead ones where I'm working my ass off down in the bilge, you got to get into some precarious positions. So right now I've got the tripod mounted on a precipice of the bulkhead, which is around about a 10-foot drop into the hull. So, if you think I'm not putting the life on the line or the gear on the line. It's on the line, and how many times this will fall into there and ride off a perfectly good markage. You know, I just can't count it on one hand, to be honest. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be down here. I'm going to remove this floor up, and I'm actually trying to think years ahead when I want to install extra plumbing, extra power, anything that might need to go under that floor. I'm going to lift this floor up, and right along this line here where this bulkhead is underneath, I'm going to drill with a hole saw 4 30mm holes so that I can feed plumbing and lines and anything through there into that next compartment. It is a sealed bulkhead at the moment because it is a water tank. It's actually the end of the water tank baffle, and essentially I'm going to basically go across the top of the water tank with some holes so that I can easily feed piping, plumbing in particular, underneath that floor up to this forward tank that I have here. So I just got through saying that I'd probably just drill the hole saw through the bulkhead here, and that's going to be down in here, 3 or 4 holes through there over the top of my water tank. And I got through saying that I might put some PVC pipe. I probably won't, but I think it's actually a good measure to put the PVC pipe in. So there's a little bit extra work there, but the good thing is it'll be a nice smooth transition for any cabling or any pump hoses, water lines, or whatever that I decide to feed through this to access this tank here. And who knows, for something else later on up the front. I'm going to use some small sections of this, and then I'll sand the ends off so they're nice and smooth, so that there's no chance of it ever wearing the hose as I put it through. So a little bit of work there. I'm going to put 4 holes, 2 on each side. I don't want any in the center. I want everything to run down the side so I can attach hoses to the outside of the wall so they don't droop into the bilge. That's a guaranteed place for mold and residue to accumulate in the bottom of the bilge. Hopefully it's always going to be a dry bilge. I won't have that issue. So I've just measured where I want to put these holes through the top of this bulkhead, but I have to remember that the water tank actually is here. So I have to be very, very careful I don't drill into my water tank. That would be almost tantamount to being a disaster. So luckily, having recorded this entire build, I have video, and I can stop it and almost get a rough measurement and know that when I drill through there, I can review this, go back and forth before I do it. A lot of errors can be made by just going hell for leather. I tend to be pretty concise when I make a decision, and when I stuff up, it drives me absolutely crazy. But for now, I know that I have around 60mm or around 2.5 inches of clearance below the composite angle before I strike the lid of that tank. Now I want these to be perfect and almost sitting on top of that tank lid in there. There's going to be 4 throughs there, 4 pipes through there, only short lengths, but ultimately that's going to be right exactly where I want them. I want them to follow along the top of the tank lid, because I'll probably even clip those plumbing lines or anything down to the top of the tank lid so that they're not in the way of anything else that might have to go in under there. So I'm trying to be neat and tidy, but I'm trying to think a year ahead here when I've got all these modules in and I'm opening this up and doing my final fit out with my plumbing lines and the like, that I've done everything correctly. So yeah, being able to review, although it takes a lot of effort to film and process these videos, they really come back to help me even 6 months on and 3 months on. It's actually 4 months since I finished that water tank lid. Now I'm able to actually go back and review and know that exactly when I cut that hole through there, the tank lid is right there, not through the lid itself, which would be freaking disaster. But anyway, I'm going to get into it now and get it done. So I was just about to glue this floor down. I'm going to epoxy this forward port cabin floor down, and I had another epiphany. The issue is going to be if I want to run a deck wash from the water tank, I need to be able to get water up to the bow of the boat, and the deck wash originally is on the starboard side. That's the plan, actually, is to have it run along the floor line and then up into the forward compartment. The problem I've got is that over in that forward compartment in the starboard hull, I have a head, and that head is very tight against the hull, so I'm going to have an exposed hose over on that side, whereas in the port side I only have a wardrobe, and I can easily secrete that plumbing line and all those other lines, gas lines or whatever I decide to run, propane, into a wardrobe here where I can hide it from the living quarters of the boat. So I've decided to put an extra 4 conduits in the bulkhead that's directly under me here, and be able to run it all the way into that forward compartment, the wardrobe in the front compartment of the hull. And then I can keep everything below the floor. I can't keep electrics below the floor. I don't believe that that's where they belong. They need to be up here on the chamfer panel. But the reality is, I think if I do this now, I'm not going to regret it. If I put another 4 40mm PVC pipes underneath there, and all the advice I've had from marine electricians, etc., is to put in as many conduits as you can, because you're going to have difficult access once this floor's down. Although I'll have hatches, I don't want to be ferreting around in there trying to get a perfect hole saw drill through my bulkheads through sort of limited hatch space. So better off to do it now. I'm just about to glue the floor down. It's going to put me back about another half a day, but the great thing about that is it's going to allow me just to feed these lines straight through. I won't have to worry about it into the future. Alright, so that took me about an hour to knock over, and in total, and the good thing about that is now I've got that access all the way through that bulkhead. I'm going to be able to keep my lines up off the floor here. I don't really want anything in the limber hole. I've always got a chance of running something through there, but I don't really want it in there. I've seen a lot of boats where we see the hoses running through the limber holes, bilge hoses, etc., and unfortunately what happens is you get mould underneath, and once you start that mould process, it's very hard to get out. So by keeping stuff up here, I'm hoping I can keep it dry, keep it clean, keep my mould at a minimum, and yeah, I think I'm now ready. Once that, I'm going to let that gel a little bit before I go putting this floor down, but this floor is now ready to go down, and I'm going to be able to then do this bulkhead. Thanks for joining me this week, guys. I've had a really big couple of weeks. I've had a lot going on. I've been working on a project on a Seawind Catamaran. Been down here, I've just filleted it in the bulkheads, and basically tabbed them in place, in fact, as well. So if you like this episode, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, click on the notifications bell, and share it out if you would. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks for joining me on Life on the Hulls. Catch you later.